I'm Todd Kendrick with D&D Beyond. I am joined with my friend Matt Mercer.
Yes.
And again, we were both very, it's been a long convention.
Yeah.
Is it a
Event.
convention? Event.
Weekend experience.
Yes, and you have many amazing things. Like you all have now kind of autonomy in the sense that like you are the forgers of your own domain now at Critical Role. What does that feel like for you right now?
It's been incredible. We're extremely thankful for the opportunities to work with everyone who we have through this journey, and being able to have, Mercer right now is developing so much great content around what Critical Role originally was, and it's been a really amazing experience to kind of take this little nugget that me and my friends put together years ago and see what kind of creativity it can spawn from there. And yeah, it's been a very surreal ride.
And that was a big day. The first day was big. Last day had to be big.
Yeah, the first day of that Kickstarter was a right hook to the soul in the best way possible. None of us had any expectation that it would get anywhere even close to that. Like you were even wondering if our stretch goals at the beginning were far more than we could expect, and it just got steamrolled immediately. And we spent the next 5 weeks just kind of in a haze, going, "What is happening?" And we're still kind of in that. We're just now trying to take that energy and get the right teams together, the right people, and make this as badass as we possibly can.
You are so overwhelmingly positive, and that helps me, and I expect it helps a lot of other people as well. Is that something that you are like conscious of trying to put out in the world? Because like whenever everything I do, I think, does this need to be out there?
Yeah.
With everything that's going on in the world, right? Like I don't need to be venting on Twitter about like something I find terrible, right?
Right.
Like, do you keep that in mind, that like you can influence so many people?
I do now a little bit. I've never expected or asked for this platform of attention, and it's been kind of a unique experience learning what that responsibility is. I've always been a very positive person. Doesn't mean that I don't have periods of dark thoughts and emotions. That's part of the human experience out there, and I've had periods in the past of my life where that's gotten really, really bad at times. So, but I've come through all that lucky enough to acknowledge that with a lot of darkness around me, there needs to be some person who's holding the ground, and I've been that for a lot of people I care about in the past, and people who care about have been that for me. And now if I have the opportunity to be an element of that for a lot of people as part of this community, then that's a responsibility I'm willing to take.
What do you care about most right now? Broad question.
Broad
I know.
question. I've been getting enough sleep and food right now, but
Right, yeah. Tater tots.
yeah, exactly. I care about this chosen family that we've become through Critical Role, and what we're unexpectedly charged with building right now with that in the community. And so I really care about the community that's made this even possible, and safeguarding that and seeing how we can continue to grow it in a way that, because it's growing regardless. We've noticed no matter what we do, it's growing.
No, you have no choice.
We have no choice. So it's trying to keep up with that and make sure that we do our best to safeguard that positive place, that open, everyone's welcome, atmosphere, and that's what's most important to me.
What do you love about D&D? Well, like we're actually at an event right now where we're like surrounded by D&D fans. What is it about it that's so much different? Is it like that need to disconnect, do you feel, sometimes? Because it's like connecting, but not like disconnecting.
I think it's both. I think it's, for a lot of us, and I speak from personal experience, there are times in our life where we don't feel comfortable being who we are in the moment. And there is something freeing about being able to construct and create a persona of something that either you want to be or you're just curious to try out that isn't yourself. And it gives you a chance to kind of live in that skin and not worry about the things that fill you with anxiety and self-loathing and a lot of these very human issues that we all endure. And through that, hopefully and often learn things about ourselves that we can now appreciate better. And through that as well, make connections with new friends, make stronger connections with old ones, and kind of build a stronger community of support around us that not a lot of other experiences can forge the way that role-playing games in D&D can.
Can I ask you, and it may be way too personal of a question, is there anything that you struggle with that you try to work on? for yourself?
A lot. I live day to day with a very serious imposter syndrome. I'm constantly waiting for all of this positivity to end, so I'm just appreciating while it's there and trying best to not ruin it. And waiting for everyone to figure out that I've just been making this up and don't know what I'm doing. I struggle a lot with body dysmorphic disorder and just being comfortable in my skin. It's been that way most of my life, and I'm just in recent years coming to terms with that and trying to be better about that. But I have social anxiety also, a lot of things that, being in this public space has introduced its own unique challenges, but it's challenges I'm willing to try and step up to. But yeah, I struggle with a lot of mental health issues like anybody does, and I'm glad that at least now the conversation publicly has been more open about this and a safe place to talk about it without the unfortunate classic social idea of ostracizing or demonizing the idea of discussing it.
Right. There was a time not very long ago.
Yeah.
I have horrible stage fright. I didn't have it for years and years, right?
Yeah.
But now, I'll have a panic attack before I have to do something. And once I burn through that, I'm fine. But there was a time where I could not tell anyone, or else I get fired.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get hired anymore. I was at a certain network and told, well, I'm glad you told me, but tell no one. You cannot ever tell anybody. And that's where you and I are both coming from, that place of it's seen as a sign of weakness. It's seen as a sign of liability to have any kind of absence of perfection.
Yeah, and consider too, in a world of social media, in which we're able to grasp elements of other people's lives, acknowledging that one, what you see is usually a very colorful, polished version of the best moments.
Right.
What you don't see is all of the much longer gulfs of time in which they are struggling like all the rest of us are. And so that's something we need to remind ourselves of the more we get engaged on a social media platform, the more we're involved in this kind of unified global social media space is, every person has their struggles, every person has their problems, and why not spend time supporting each other in that space than tearing each other down or tearing ourselves down?
Yeah, there's nothing interesting about what you hate.
Yeah.
No one cares. Or maybe, some people may care.
It can be profitable,
It's
unfortunately.
profitable, to spew hate, but it's just not functional to humanity in any way, shape, or form.
So for those of us who can, to try and change some of the dynamic best we can, the scale we have access to, because we're trying. And this is one of those spaces, one of those, for me at least, a very safe space of good people, good community, good games, and good friends. So,
with your storytelling, are there elements that you're trying to convey that same stuff?
The nature of role-playing games is you don't really know where the story's going to go.
No.
So I like to set up aspects of those things that can be tackled. A lot of times they become naturally in player stories, and you're like, oh, this will be an interesting way to explore these aspects. But mostly, like any story or any role-playing game, there are some aspects of it that are exploring humanity, and those are very prominent aspects of humanity. So whether you mean to or not, those themes can and will be touched on at some point through a long-term campaign, I believe.
Does that bleed into villains as well? Because we talk about villains, and villains is the wrong word, but the person that may seem to be the villain, I always take a kernel of something I don't like about myself and make it extreme.
I personally love villains that I can understand and in some ways kind of feel for their reasoning or can understand why they became what they are.
Yeah.
But there's also sometimes, especially in fantasy genres, just forces of evil. But even in that point, you kind of consider what made them evil, what drives them behind just I just want to kill things. Why? Is that in your blood? Is that in your DNA? And that's where you have, the devils and demons. But even in there, you can find some wiggle room too. For me, for villains, some of them are based on things I dislike I see in other people that I met and known in my life. Sometimes they are aspects of myself that I don't like, and in a similar way, kind of expanding on that and unintentionally. Though a lot of that's hindsight. I don't notice it at the time, and then after the game, looking back on it and kind of processing and analyzing how that whole story went, I'd be like, oh man, I subconsciously put a few threads of things that I was working through into this narrative without meaning to, and it became unintentional therapy. So,
when you and I were growing up, I often think about what I would have told myself back in the past. When you're looking at yourself, when you were a teenager, in the worst of times, really, for a lot of people, what would you say to yourself? What advice would you have?
Oh man.
It's a horrible question.
No, try not to let your fear rule you too much. that's fear of accepting myself, fear of letting other people in, fear of challenging what other people say about you. Those are all things that I think prevented me from becoming who I am sooner. You know, I eventually learned some of those lessons, and I'm still working through some of those lessons. But if I'd gotten a grasp on that a lot sooner, I think I would have been able to be happier at a much younger age.
It does take some time.
It does. It does.
And even then, it's still a struggle.
Yeah.
What brings you the most joy?
My wife, my friends, and kind of seeing all these people come together. You know, this game, this experience, this thing that was so important to me, and I long thought, from my experience and personal perspective, didn't have much of a place in the world, is now so much more widespread, and seeing so many people engage with it and enjoy it and find each other through it, that makes me extremely happy.
It's very hard to get emotional and walk around a crowd when you do something that you didn't think anyone would care, first off, that you would normally hide that you were doing, and then you didn't think anyone would care that you were doing, and now they come up to you and they have an emotional connection to you. It's a hard thing to process. It's not a question. I'm just talking.
No, it's true. It's a unique and unexpected thing to process, but every time it's also beautiful. Like I've always been very emotionally open. In a lot of cases, in an American culture that doesn't value that in men largely.
No.
That's beginning to change more as we move forward, and to me, it's always a gift that other people feel comfortable opening up to me emotionally, and we get to have that open connection. So it's a lot at times, but it's wonderful.
Yeah, like growing up myself, even like that was unheard of, right? To talk about your feelings, to talk about your emotions in any way, and I still don't think I have actually like the structure to do so. Like in my mind, like I'm just kind of like a little bit of a machine, right? And then things break through.
Well, that's progress, though. That means you're still figuring out the tools to do so.
Right. What do you want next for Critical Role? I know it's a very big question. You've got an entire animated series. That's insane, dude. Do you know that is freaking insane?
So insane.
Yeah, let's just like break the interview for a moment. You are actually like, you have an animated series and all these people wanted to see it. Like you are making it happen, and you made it happen independent of a studio system. Yeah. You made it independent of any other company but yourselves. This is purely you and your friends and your talent and your drive, and this is going to all happen for you.
Well, that's part of it, but it's also everybody who put their faith in us to even make this happen. Like, you know, this truly was kind of a breaking point and realization of the power of this community and these people, that when they want something to be made, they can will it into existence in a scope that I would never have expected. And now we're just digesting the scope of that and ensuring that we can protect the vision and make it as badass as humanly possible for all you guys. And yeah, it's a huge honor. It's a huge oh god, now we got to do this, kind of scenario. But super excited, and it's just so thankful and grateful.
Don't forget that's kind of a moment in time that you have when you have deep success. All of a sudden, everyone wants to be your friend. Everyone wants to do something with you, and sometimes, well, often, those intentions are not pure. And yeah, safeguarding your friends and your original intent is like key for creatives.
There's something so wonderful and rare about this whole experience, is that we are in a position that we don't answer to anybody on the large, studio scale for this project. And so we are able to do this at the pace we want to. And sure, people have come out of the woodwork and been like, hey, we can triple your profits on this, and we can go ahead and produce all these great major tours you can do and get all this extra income. And we're like, we don't want to. We're very careful and slow and guarded with how we expand anything we do, because this is so important to us, and we also want to make sure that we do things how we can control. The minute you let things spiral is when things start coming out that you don't approve, that people that don't understand what makes this special begin to take that and run. And we don't need that, and I'm excited that we're in a position where we can still do it just us.
Okay, so this is unprofessional. You mean a lot to me in terms of like our interactions. Like the first time I ever met you, just didn't know you at all. And we took a goofy photo and we talked, and I realized what like an alarming positive person you are. And like people need examples like that in life, right? Like you need to have. I think everyone needs to make more of an effort like that. Is there like something you're always striving for to improve in that way? I'm not even making a very good question.
No.
I'm just telling you, man. Like I just
Thank you.
like you have meant so much to me. Like even in in our private conversations, there are moments where I just like I've needed to like have that conversation of like, oh my God, and you're like or shared fandom, but like, what is important about friendship? What is the value of friendship?
It's more valuable than most anything else, in my opinion. I mean, when it comes to, in my opinion, a few things that I keep in mind at the end of your life, when you look back and all the experiences you've had and it's coming to an end, the most important thing is the experiences. Things don't matter. Everything you've bought, everything that you've acquired that is just stuff, none of that's going to matter when you look back, and it's the friendships you made, the experiences you got to have with people you care about. That's the most important thing. And as far as trying to perpetuate positivity out there, it's so hard when you're locked into the solitary experience of being you, and you see the rest of the world as this other thing that affects you, especially when it comes to other people. That's how dissonance and miscommunication can cause so much emotional distress. One big thing I try and keep in mind is that every time a person says something offhand and pisses you off, every time a person at a server at a diner or a person working at this store is just really giving you a lot of attitude, and your instinct is to scream back or to carry that negative energy with you, you have no idea what's going on in that person's life. You don't know what sort of struggle they're enduring, and it may not always be the case, but more often than not, there's something that's feeding that ball of unfortunate emotion, and just take an extra step to empathize with that and be like, you know what, I hope you work it out.
Yeah, and don't think that just because everyone has success and they're very positive that they don't have their own stuff going on.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are just holding it together.
Yeah.
And doing their best. Thank you for taking the time.
Of course, man. Always
I know we were both very tired.
It's all good. It's the best time to get
You're
interviews.
fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.